our guest tonight, Atra is she is a community organizer for the Council on American Islamic Relations, and her primary role is building community, fostering connections, and with the culturally diverse Black community, and it is diverse. I know a lot of people may not realize when you think about Latin America, people don't realize that the majority of Black people come from Latin America, especially when you think about Brazil, Colombia, even Mexico has about 1.2 million Black citizens. And these are the things that a lot of people may not realize. But it is something that we have to be vigilant about. Belizean community, we have a large Black Belizean community, the Creole and the Garifuna, that are in the United States. And because of systemic racism and other issues, sometimes the added factor of being immigrant could be a target for people. And what I've noticed is that because the climate of immigration have shifted, the fear is real. A lot of people are sharing, and from what I've noticed, they're sharing a lot of wrong information sometimes that adds to the fear. And I think when people are fearful, they make irrational decisions. And that's why I'm always an advocate for good information from people who are in the community and know exactly what's going on. So with that being said, welcome, Atra. Could you just introduce yourself?
Brother Bilal, thank you guys so much for inviting me. Again, my name is Atra Flemings, and I am a community organizer for Los Angeles, for CARE office. And then our region in Southern California goes from, let's say, Bakersfield to near Santa Barbara to San Diego, all the way to San Bernardino County. So we cover a large area here in Los Angeles. But my main focus is usually right here in Los Angeles.
So thank you for joining us. My first thing is that the conversation has changed around immigration. And not only that, it's actually a very supported initiative. A lot of Americans actually support this mass deportation philosophy. What are some of your biggest concerns as a community organizers? Like, what are some of the heightened fears that you are encountering in the immigration or the immigrant community?
Well, the thing that I've come across is I've been working with this particular program for 4 years. So what I've noticed among Black people in general, African Americans, however you want to picture it, in America, they call us all Black. So what I've noticed is that there is a lack of trust among each other. Even with next door neighbors, we don't want to share information. So even if we could help, by the time we get the information to help, people are on their way to be deported. So we have to open those lines of communication to begin to talk to each other, to begin to work together as a community so that we could support each other. And again, to build community, but we can't do that if we don't have the trust.
So you're facing the lack of communication, which is major because there really is a lot of information that are out there. Some of it is fear-mongering. How are you guys addressing this legally and through advocacy that you do? How are you guys trying to change that fear or increase the ability for everyone to communicate?
Well, one of the things that, again, the fear is there. We have begun to do more emergency preparedness presentations focused on knowing your rights when it comes to being stopped and harassed and detained by ICE or other law enforcement officers. So that is a big help, because I think if you know what your rights are, you know how to proceed forward. And you feel a lot more confident when you know what those rights are.
We're now joined by Amina. She signed in. Welcome, Amina. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're very busy and this was kind of short notice. I'll just introduce you a little bit. Amina is an immigrants' rights managing attorney at CARE LA. And she came to America herself as an immigrant. And Amina, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Introduce yourself and tell us what you do at CARE.
Okay. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amina Fales. I am an managing attorney at CARE for the Greater Los Angeles office. We're located in Anaheim, and the office that I work for provides free immigration services to low-income families and individuals. I've been with CARE since 2018, so a little bit. And as ARIA said, I came to the U.S. As an immigrant, or as a derivative of a refugee. My dad came as a refugee from Vietnam in the 80s, and I followed him soon after. We were one of the boat peoples where we left Vietnam on a boat and went to a refugee camp in Thailand, and then eventually got resettled to California and started a new life, and with the support of our community and nonprofit organizations. And then I'm kind of like making a full circle in my life and in the position to help people that are seeking a new life in America.
And quickly, because I just want to quickly ask you, like, how do you feel about the changing immigration climate when you're talking to your clients or people who are reaching out to you? What are some of the fears that they have expressed to you?
They are scared that the changes may impact their case. In some situation, it does. In others, it doesn't. But they're still scared. They're scared that they're at risk of getting detained. And so there's overall a lot of anxiety and unknowns about how that would impact their case. And it's unfortunate that our government is the one that is the source of creating all this anxiety and stress.
So what are some of the ways, and then I'll bring back Atra into the convo. What are some of the ways legally or through advocacy are you helping as a managing attorney? How are you guys addressing this? I know Atra mentioned communication is a major issue, trying to get the information out there so that people know there are resources that they can reach out to. Is there any other way that you can see, or how would you advise someone who is in fear of being deported? What can they do legally?
Well, the first thing is they can be proactive and contact CARE or other nonprofit organization to assess their case, to assess their options, so that they can take those steps towards whatever options they have. In some cases, they don't have any option, and just knowing that they don't have any option is important information so that they don't get scammed by other people that may take advantage of their fear and say that they can do something with their case and have them pay a lot of money and then nothing happens with their case. So getting accurate legal advice is the first thing. And once they determine their options, they can also put in place some steps that they can do if they are in an emergency situation where they are detained or their family members are detained. So for example, creating a family plan, like let's say the head of household is undocumented and they have children and they're supporting their children. So now they need to put a plan in place where who will take care of their children if they're detained. In addition, gathering their documents is part of the family planning because those documents will be needed for their attorney to help them get out of the detention center to prepare for a bond hearing. And also knowing what documents they should keep with them to prevent them from being detained or being placed in expedited removal. Because there's one executive order where if you can't demonstrate that you've been in the U.S. for longer than 2 years, they can put you in expedited removal where you won't have the due process rights to seek relief. And expedited removal is what it sounds like. They are going to deport you really quickly. But if you have if you're prepared and have those documents in place, such as marriage certificates, birth certificates of your children, and other documents to show that you've been here for longer than that, then you may be detained, but you won't be deported as soon. Oh. And have all your numbers with you so that you can call whoever it is that knows what to do next. Either call your attorney or call your family who has all those contacts that they need to call to get the ball rolling.
Thank you. Atra, could you give us some real life consequences that you guys have encountered since, it's literally only been 3 weeks. It feels like it's been 5 years already, but there's a lot changing and happening almost daily. Could you give us some real life consequences within the Muslim, Black communities, refugees that are seeking help? What have you seen?
Again, like everyone else, I've seen the same fear. We've had calls from schools, churches, from masjids. The people are on edge. And again, they just want to be comforted. They want to know what should they put in place to prepare if anything happens. And what part of what they're hearing is true and what part is false.
You have been on the forefront of working along with Black immigrant communities as well as Black American communities in the protection of their rights in the United States. Talk about, Sister Atra, about the services that you all provide to protect, that you have worked with in the past, protect Black immigrants from deportation and act from incarceration, because that's one of the areas that you have worked with tremendously, helping, working with people to help them from being detained and being incarcerated in the prison system. Talk about your work there, specifically around Black immigration prior to to the Trump administration immigration measures, and then also extend that into what is happening now.
Well, again, my work as a community organizer focuses on education and outreach. So I try to reach out to the community, listen to what their needs are, and then try to connect them with the resources that meet those needs. When it comes to Black immigrants, especially in California and Los Angeles, what we know, according to a report that Baji put out, I believe 4 years ago, that report said that Black immigrants represent less than 6% of the immigrant population here in Los Angeles. And of all immigrants deported, Black immigrants represent 75%.
Staggering statistic.
Yeah, so those numbers were like staggering to me. I'm like, we're such a small community. What is happening that we are being deported and we're not hearing about it and we're not seeing it? So that was my biggest concern. So as I go out there talking to the community members, again, I'm listening to what their concerns are, but a lot of them have not mentioned that has been an issue. Now we know it's a fact because it's already written and documented, but we're still not having those conversations. But again, as a community organizer, I'm trying to get that information to them and to receive and take back what I can so that we can find resources and solutions to whatever our problems are that we're facing.
And one of those Black immigrant communities is the Belizean community, which, according to the mayor of Los Angeles, who I had met when she was a congresswoman, she had stated to me that the Belizeans are the largest Black immigrant group, then followed by the Nigerians and Ethiopians. And I know that you have had some inroads into the Belizean community with your work. Myself have connected with you in terms of hopefully one day soon setting up some clinics in the Belizean community to help to address this issue of immigration. But talk about the Belizean community, if you may, and Sister Atra, if you may help address their plight as a Black immigrant and ways in which they can immediate things that they can prepare for and do to help themselves around this whole sweeping immigration deportation measures that is presently going on by ICE.
What I can say is, if you are out there and you need resources, you need to call us and then connect with us so that someone in our office can hear your story, see where you're at, and then see how we can assist you. Sometimes people hold on to that information until it's too late. So it's not just the Belizean community, it's the Black community in general in Los Angeles. We are all doing battle. And as you know, when it comes to African Americans, we're stopped, frisked, and searched more than in any other group. So when you're a Black immigrant and you look the same, you get the same treatment. You're going to be stopped, frisked, and searched, detained. But if you have any of these issues that deal with your status, you need to call someone that you trust and talk to an attorney that you can trust that can at least tell you what can be changed about your status. If it's possible that it can be changed, but we won't know if you don't step up and, bring the information and let us tell you, and then we can move from there. But if you keep all the information and again, you wait to the last minute, it's going to be hard, because once you're on the way to be deported, it's almost like we can't help you at that point. And I'm not the attorney, so I can only tell you what my experience is in the community trying to get people to come out and talk to an attorney. So I can get Sister Amina and her team to come out if I know the community is saying, we definitely have an issue. We're going to meet at a restaurant, a community center. Can you all come out? Can you bring some attorneys? We can come out.
Yes, and I very much, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I mean, we're open, but we just need to know where to go and how we can help.
And it's good that you emphasize it, because the Belizean community are very laid back. They're being many undocumented Belizeans in the United States. They kind of more in the background, not really forefront. They are not really aggressive enough in issues and crises like this, to come forward, as you are saying. You can't do anything unless people are coming forward and giving that information. And that's how CARE can help. But I want to go to Sister Amina, being that, as you mentioned, you work together, you and Sister Amina work together. Amina Fields worked together as an attorney and a lawyer. And I remember Sunday I attended the clinic and was chatting with Sister Amina. So Amina, if you're hearing me, I think she has her. You're hearing me? Address, if you may, how, if someone comes forward to you, an undocumented immigrant, what are some of the things that you would say or address them legally that they should immediately do? They come, as I've seen a couple people ask you questions, and you had your desk there and you were able to address the certain situations with certain immigrants from the Muslim community. Talk about how that the process goes in terms of a person comes to you, an undocumented immigrant in this time. What are some of the things that you how would you address the situation in terms of what do you tell them and how the situation unfolds?
So we do a full assessment of what they're eligible for. When they come to us, they could have specific questions, so we try to answer that question. But if they are just coming to us and saying, I want to know what my options are because I'm out of status or undocumented, then we go through the whole spectrum of possibilities by asking them certain questions that will trigger whether they would be eligible for certain relief. It's all on a case-by-case basis, and it all depends. What they are eligible for is dependent on when they came to the U.S., why they left their home country, whether they stayed in other countries before they came to the U.S., and whether those conditions are still present in their country now that they're in the U.S., and whether those reasons meet the requirements for the benefits such as asylum. And then we also assess other options too, such as if they're from a country that has been designated temporary protective status. We assess whether they meet the requirements for that country, for that designation. We assess whether they've been a victim of any serious crimes, because that would then lead us to assessing whether they could apply for U visa, whether a victim of domestic violence and the status of the abuser, they could be eligible for VAWA, or whether they are minors and been abandoned by their parents. That could be, they could be eligible then for a special immigrant visa. So there is a broad, so the consultation could take 30 minutes or an hour and 30 minutes, depending on the information and the situation of that individual. And once we get all the information, we let them know, we think that you are eligible for this, or we think that you're not eligible for this or for this. And so at the end of it, if they're not eligible for anything, then we tell them, this is how you can, what you should do to at least be safe from being placed at risk of being detained, and this is what you should do before you are detained, so that you have someone that can act on your behalf to help you with your case. Even in some situation, if there's nothing that they can do and they're detained, then they just need help navigating through that system.
And I remember being in the looking at the slide presentation that was made by Baji, I think, and there was certain things there are things that the undocumented immigrant should do if ICE comes to their homes, or if the police has stopped them, or some form of immigration. it was so detailed. But what would you say are some of the basic things, Sister Amina, that people that they should have, they should do, knowing their rights? That what are the basic rights that they have, right? That is involved with all this. There's a lot. And, throwing a lot of information at people sometimes, the literacy rate of a lot of people, undocumented people, they can't really siphon through or filter all that information. But can you share with our viewers and our listening audience, maybe the 5 basic things that they should know if ICE approaches them?
Okay. So if ICE approaches them, they should remain calm. And depending where they are at, they have different levels of rights. If they are at their home, they should not open the door. If they are in a public place, then they should answer. So let's just first go with if they are at home. Sometimes ICE officers may disguise themselves in different type of clothing. They may dress in civilian clothing, or they may dress in clothing that make them look like they are police officers and not ICE officers. Regardless of who they are or what they look like, you should treat them all the same and be very careful in not granting them access, because you're not required to grant them access to your home unless they have a lawful judicial warrant. So first thing is, at your home, don't open the door. Second, you ask them to identify themselves, and you ask them if they have a warrant. And then you ask them to put the warrant against the window or put it under the door, and so that you can review it to make sure that it's valid. The warrant has to have the person's name that they're looking for, the right date of birth, the right address, and it has to be signed by a judge. If none of these things, if one of these things are missing, the warrant is invalid, which means that you don't have to consent or open the door to let them in. So you can say, I'm not letting you in because this is not a valid warrant, and now I'm exercising my right to remain silent. I don't want to answer any of your questions without my lawyer present. I want my lawyer to be here. And so the second advice is review and make sure that they have a valid warrant. The third advice is remain silent and not answer unnecessary questions. If you're in your home, then just give them, you don't have to answer any questions. You can just say that you're exercising your right to remain silent and keep the door closed. But however, if you live with someone else and that person let them in the house, and now once they're in the house, you can't, it'll be very difficult to push them out. You shouldn't push them out. You shouldn't use any force. You shouldn't resist arrest. You shouldn't run away, because that would make it worse. But if you have someone there that can record the activities that's happening, that you should do that to protect yourself. And in the case where they are in your house, you have to assess and balance the risk of answering questions and the risk of being placed in removal proceedings, expedited removal proceedings. So if you have proof that you've been here for longer than 2 years, you should explain that to them, that I have been here for longer than 2 years. But don't go into any more details, because whatever you say, they're going to document it. And if it's inconsistent with your story later or what you already submitted to them, they can use that against you. If you're like in your car, you can, your rights is similar. In that you stop, you provide your driver's license, and you can exercise your right to remain silent, but you have to balance that with also trying to provide information so that you don't get placed in expedited removal proceedings. Now, in the workplace and in the place of worship, like the masjid or in schools, those are areas where there is public access, but then those areas also have restricted access. And so if they come there and they are trying to find somebody, you don't have to cooperate with them if they don't have a valid warrant. So you're not forced to consent to allow them to go into a restricted place, like for employees, or restricted place where students and teachers are. You should say that I'm not consenting for you to access these areas that are restricted from the public, and that you should direct them to the boss, the employer, the principal, the dean on campus for any access they want to get to you, but that you don't have to help. But one thing is, you can't obstruct their activities if they're in a public place, but you also know that you're not obligated to help.
One of the things when you are approached, and I just want to make it clear, you are supposed to provide at least your name, right? But you cannot lie. I think it's very important that people understand you don't lie about who you are because it can hurt you later on.
Yeah, definitely. I don't recommend lying. So if you don't have information to provide them that will help you get out of being detained, then just exercise your right to remain silent.
Right. One of the things you mentioned about schools and college campuses. In those environments, you're dealing with a lot of minors, right? Could you tell us if a minor is approached and ask questions about their parents? And maybe the parents can help educate their children if they're approached, because the kids might be US citizens or they might not be, but the parents are not. So what should a parent tell their children if they are approached by ICE or an authority in that manner?
I would just tell, and I haven't heard of situation where ICE is talking to minors.
Okay.
That's, but if they're somehow do talk to minors, then the minors can exercise the right to remain silent and just say, I wanted my parents here. I don't want to answer any questions, and just ask for their parents and just say, I don't feel comfortable in answering any of these questions. I want my parents here. The situations where I heard that they talk to children is when it was one incident in Florida where they went to the school and their faculty brought the students to the ICE came to the school, and the faculty or the principal took the students out, and ICE talked to the students individually and asked them where they were born, where their parents were born. And then they sent a message to the parents to come to school. And in those situations, the students should say that they don't want to answer any questions. They don't feel comfortable answering any questions without their parents. But they're young kids, so it's kind of a very difficult topic to talk to young kids like that. I don't foresee that would be a risk in California where schools will cooperate like that, but we're talking about Florida. And they have a different type of
governor. Yeah.
You know.
I live in Florida now for 23 years, and Florida used to have a lot of protection for migrant workers and for immigrants, but that has shifted recently, and so this is extremely important information. I do want to go back to ARIA a little bit, because we talk about the communities not speaking about this issue. And I'm from Belize, and immigration status is treated with a level of shame. Even deportation, they treat it almost like you're criminals. So there's a lot of people who are ashamed to talk about their immigration status. They feel like if they share it with people, they might use it against them. And so some people are able to assimilate better than others, so they don't want people to know about their immigration status. I have a cousin on DACA in California, and she's an advocate within the Black students DACA community. And she tells the story about when she started to advocate. Our family said, put your head down, be quiet, don't bring any attention to yourself. And so that becomes the narrative that immigrant communities are told, because it's treated with shame. It's treated almost like you're a criminal, you know? How do you overcome that? Because I think we're in an era now that we got to walk out that shame and we got to kind of protect ourselves, our communities that may be facing this type of, it could be turned into harassment. And I think that's what people are afraid of, to be harassed or to be constantly threatened because people are aware of their immigration status. So how would you discuss that with people to kind of bring them out of the shadows so that they know what their rights are?
Personally, you know, to me, it sounds like all of it is trauma. You know, our people have been traumatized. And it's not just the Belizean community. My late husband was from Ghana. And it was a big shame for Ghanaians to be deported and sent back home. It's like, for them, it was like a sign of failure. Like you left home, you went all the way to America, and what did you do? That you had to be deported. So that shame came with it. When I go out in the community, I can't do anything to change the shame that community members might feel. I really can't. I can share my story as someone who had an incarcerated loved one. I had a son who had been incarcerated, and of course we fought, and years later he was exonerated of all charges. But I didn't realize that during those 19 years that he was incarcerated, that I was traumatized. I was traumatized the whole 19 years. It wasn't anything that I wanted to talk about with anybody. So when you are here, I have a friend who is Belizean, who has been in the state since she was 2. And she didn't find out until she graduated from high school and went to apply for college that they said, well, you're undocumented. She's like, what do you mean? I'm an American. She didn't even know, you know? And then once that happens, you know, there's that confusion again. So during that time, she could have qualified, and a lot of Black immigrants that were here in Los Angeles could have qualified for DACA, but many were told that DACA wasn't for us. So it's that misinformation again. If you're not clear about something and you don't know what resources that are available to you, you have to ask, because there could be a simple solution to your problem if you just brought your case and talked about it. So I'm constantly telling people, don't you judge what your situation is because of a conversation you had with your neighbor. Go and talk to an attorney and find out everything, and then you can make an educated decision about your own personal case. But talk to an attorney. Those are the people that can answer your questions. I can't.
So, Amina, going back to the legal aspect, because I saw a very prominent pastor in Belize post this, she shared a joke. It was a comedian that was making fun of immigrants in a way that he was kind of highlighting the ultra sensitivity around it, where he was saying that he was kidnapping DoorDash people, and he has them locked in his room because ICE is paying $750 for every immigrant that you catch. I got that it was humor, but it was shared and viewed, and it was actually reshared with a very prominent influencer. And so to me, that added a significant fear that people think that the average person can walk up to you, lock you up, and wait for ICE to come pick you up. And I just want you to kind of address that because that comes from a lot of misinformation. And I really think that even people who think they can do it, so that they're aware what people's rights are. Could you just talk a little bit on this rumor that ICE was paying $750 one, and whether or not an average citizen can just come and kidnap you and put you in their spare room, because I think it has to be discussed.
Yes, I saw that, and ICE had to make a post to clarify, and they clearly says we're not paying anyone money to report or capture an undocumented person. So that's one rumor that is dispelled, that ICE is not paying anybody. Secondly, it's illegal for the civilians to detain a person if they suspect that that person is undocumented, or even if they know the person is undocumented. They can't detain a person, and you should call the police, because that is assault, could be battery, and kidnapping. And then if you're a victim of that, you could possibly apply for a U visa, because those are some serious crimes that you're a victim of.
Thank you for addressing that, because I think to me it was ridiculously that I thought, okay, this guy's a comedian, but I feel like when people are in this ultra sensitivity, anything that is thrown to them is believable. What are some resources that people can go to instead of depending on other people to articulate to them? You are a professional, so definitely you. But if I just want to read up a little bit about immigration and what my rights are, that I can see it as a credible source, where can people go to? I know CARE is one, your organization, but what other places can people go to get credible information?
Well, there's a lot of organizations providing information. If you're in the LA County, there's the immigrant Office of Immigrant Affairs, where they have information about resources on organizations that offer services, legal services, and other type of services. And then there's a lot of know your rights materials for these organizations as well. I have links to them, and can I drop them in the chat, and you guys can just, will they have access to it? Is there a chat that?
Yeah, so what I'll do, I'll reshare it on the thread that is being shown live. I'll go ahead and reshare it.
So in one of these website, it has a list of rapid response numbers that are specific for different regions in the county, and people can call that number if one of their relatives or friends were detained, and then the person that you're calling will ask you a few questions and give refer you to who can help your relative that's detained. And then there's a lot of know your rights materials on these websites as well. But there's many more. I just so happened to attend a meeting today with a lot of service providers and immigrant rights group in the LA County area, and they share some of their resources.
And just to recap a little bit, if you've been here for 2 years or more, you are not eligible for expedited removal. You have to go through a court system to be removed, right? That's very important. Secondly, you mentioned you're not required to answer about your immigration status, even if you're asked about it. You have the right to remain silent. You definitely should give your name, but I think that's about it. You don't have to tell them, no, I'm blah, 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 I came here. That is information. And then when you're detained.
Well, if you are a lawful permanent resident, or have some tacit, then go ahead and tell them that.
So another thing is, this is another rumor that's very prominent floating around in Belize. They're expressing that an American, a Belizean person got a US passport, traveled to Belize, and when they entered Belize, they entered with a Belize passport. And then when they came back to the US, they entered back with their US passport, and the passport was taken away at the point of entry, and the person was deported. Of course, these are just things they're saying. There's no name that's attached to it. They really can't tell you where it happened. And I don't know how much you know while you're in your immigration. So could you just tell us whether or not, if you're a US citizen, you leave the country, even though you have a dual citizenship, and you have two passports, are you eligible to be deported because you have two passports?
No, you're not. You're a U.S. citizen. They have to, you have due process rights if they want to strip your U.S. citizenship. And it's a very difficult process. And so they can't just take your U.S. passport and deport you without due process. And it has to be on other reason, not by you using another passport. So they require you to use your U.S. citizen passport when you exit, when you're boarding a flight to depart outside. But once you land in another country, they don't have control over what passport you use to enter that country. And then when you return to the U.S., you're required to use your U.S. passport. I've heard about rumors like that they were going to take a person's U.S. passport away, but I haven't heard any confirmed incidents of that, just rumors.
Right.
And the one thing to consider is that when you enter another country with another passport and not a U.S. passport, it may be hard then for the U.S. embassy there to provide you that protection of the U.S. government. That's kind of outside my scope of expertise. But I think there may be some concern or issues when you enter another country without U.S. passport.
Well, then with the changing laws, Amina, with the Trump administration sort of revoking and changing a lot of these laws, what would be your advice to people who are going in, like ARIA is saying, going in with an traveling to US with an American passport, you have dual citizenship, but then using that country's passport to enter to also enjoy the benefits, because I understand why people do that. They use the country's passport to get the benefits of that privileges that is there for them as a citizen of that country. Would you advise at this critical time in this crisis that people do that, or would you say that people should stay away from that? Just use the American passport to enter and exit.
I advise that when they leave the U.S., they have to use their U.S. passport. And when they enter the U.S., they have to use their U.S. passport. I can advise on the benefits of using a different passport when they're entering another country, because I don't know the benefits and the disadvantage, because each country probably has different conditions.
Honestly, Bilal, just to jump on that, I honestly don't see why they need to use a Belize passport to enter Belize when they don't have visa requirements for Americans. It's interesting because I don't see what additional benefit you get. The Belize government recognizes you as a Belizean, even if you come in with a U.S. passport. So it was just a rumor I wanted to dispel, because the thing is, a lot of prominent people are resharing bad information. And I think what it does, if you are scared already, you go deeper into the shadows because you're afraid that you're pinpointed as potentially to be kidnapped or something like that. And I think it's very important we talk to attorneys and credible people rather than influencers and people who are just resharing stuff, and they're not fact checking it. They're not saying, hey, I got this and I checked with my attorney friend, and my attorney, who is an expert in immigration, has confirmed this is true or not true. I think people really need to be vigilant about the laws, their constitution. This is a good time to pull it up and start reading. Amina and Atra, if I wanted to become more involved as an ally to the immigrant community and to with care, how can people get involved if people want to be allies or people want to help get the information out there? Could you tell us where we should go, how we can get this information to different communities?
I'll take that.
Hey, to start with you, Sister Atra.
What I'll say is that under this particular grant, which is the Black Immigrants and Racial Equity Program, BIA program, we've been working this program for 4 years. It is supposed to end this year. If our community wants to keep programs like this that they can benefit from, we need them to advocate to keep these kind of programs. But if we're not going to use the resources, we will probably end up losing these type of programs. You mentioned earlier in the program how we have a lot of Black immigrants that come from Latin countries. But when it comes to immigration, we see huge Latin communities that are supporting the organizations that are providing these services. What we don't see is a large number of Black immigrants that are saying that they need these services as well. And they do need the services, but you have to use the services and then you have to fight to keep the services. So if you're interested in seeing not only this program, but other programs that they've created in California, we need you to become advocates, and become an advocate for yourself first, your family second, but definitely become an advocate. So you can reach out to us. Our number, Brother Bilal has it. If you'd like to fight and help us keep these programs going in California, we would love to see more Black folks participate.
And of course, I want to just add that we are about to organize a clinic in the Belizean community, hopefully very soon. And both Sister Atra, Sister Amina have confirmed 2 dates that we can use, ARIA, March 1st and the 8th. So we are looking forward to, as Sister Atra is saying, take advantage of these resources, because that's the statistics. Latino immigrants are very proactive. They take advantage of the resources and the services that are available to them, but the Black immigrant community, I don't understand what is the problem, are not as aggressive in going after these services. And we have organizations like CARE who are coming and begging, come to us. I mean, and how do we change that situation? Is like her ambassador saying, well, then they are the largest Black immigrant group. Well, then why are they not leading the Black immigrant agenda? Why is the Nigerians and the Ethiopians leading it? Well, it's a people who are not proactive and aggressive towards these sorts of things. I don't know if it will change now. and organizing clinics in the Belizean community. Hopefully on March 1st and March 8th, we'll hopefully will see certain people come forward. But I am making this very serious statement that if you are an undocumented Belizean out there and you're seeing this crisis unfolding, I would advise you to come to these Belizean, these clinics that CARE will be organizing. And I'm speaking directly to the Belizean diaspora here in the Los Angeles community, where the city that has the largest population of Belizeans across the United States. I am underscoring that heavily. Come on out to these clinics and come and look after your situation. Just don't sit there and feel like you don't have any kind of help at all. The purpose of bringing these two ladies on here to express, to sort of wipe away that fear. And I just want to underscore that very seriously, because the Belizean community is a community that is not proactive when it comes to these to immigration issues, and this is a time that they need to. And I just wanted to make that statement, Aria, very
So
seriously.
the number for CARE, which was just shared with us, is 657-456-7563, and that's ARTRA's office. Is CARE located in other cities beside California or other states? Is there other CARES? And I want to ask a non-legal question to Amina, because I don't want her to answer it legally. But do you recommend that people who are not documented go to friendlier states? Like, for example, Florida is gearing up to create an immigration czar, which honestly I don't think it'll last long, because the economy is heavily dependent on immigrant labor, and we do have an election in 2 years, so it will be interesting. But in your opinion, and this is your personal opinion, you and ARTRA, Amina, do you think people should consider leaving these aggressive states that are going after immigrants and going to states that are more immigrant friendly? What are your thoughts on that? And does CARE exist anywhere else?
CARE does exist in other states, not all states. Our headquarters is in Washington, D.C., but not every state has an immigration department, or not every CARE office has an immigration department. In California, we have 4 offices, one in Sacramento, San Francisco. The one that I'm at is in Anaheim, but we service LA County and other counties in Southern California. And we have one in San Diego. In the question where you asked, what is my advice to people that live in other states on whether they should move to more immigrant-friendly states, I can advise that my general advice is that you do what you need to do for yourself and your family, what's best for yourself and for your family. And there are various factors that you take into consideration when you need to relocate and uproot your family. Another thing I want to mention is that thank you, Brother Bilal, for encouraging people to come out to the legal clinics. Not only do we give consultations for undocumented people, we also help people that have legal status. So if you have a green card already, we can help you for free to apply for naturalization. Free service, regardless of your income, for naturalization. For other services, we have to look at your income. And so if you also are a U.S. citizen and you want to petition for your parents, your minor children, your wife's spouse, husband, and apply for adjustment status, we can help with that too. So it's not, our service is a full spectrum of legal immigration applications that we can help with.
That's awesome. That's actually
Very
that's
good.
very good because I think that, and I do want to remind people that these services are private and confidential. So it's not like they're going to go on some show and say, hey, by the way, do you know Bilal is an undocumented worker or something
Yeah.
like that? It's private information. So if you do have a serious concern, and you are worried about people knowing about your status, please use these services. And I'm just going to go ahead and give the phone number. This is going to be for immigration services. It's 714-776-1177, extension 1. And that is CARES Immigrants Rights Center number. And also again, 657 456-7563, which is ARTRA care office number. And do you guys go, like, if you do it virtually also? For example, I might want a presentation to a student group or maybe the Belize associations, is it something that you could also arrange virtually so that people could access it even if they're not in California? Because at the end of the day, it's immigration, which is federal, right? So any ideas on that?
If you want us to do a presentation, you can contact Ultra, and she will coordinate our the time and date.
Okay. And Ultra, we do have, that I can identify off the top of my head. We do have like 5 Belizean associations sprinkled throughout the United States. And I think just looking at some of the responses, a lot of people truly are nervous. And even people who are legally here, people who are citizens, are afraid now that they're just going to be stripped of their citizenship, which I think to a big extent, that's what they want people to think, right? Because when you're not armed with information, you tend to act irrationally and fearfully, and then they can basically force you to do things that you might not do. For example, give too much information and stuff like that. So I think that's a very important aspect of the work that you guys do. Since all this has happened, did you see like an increase? We did see deportations, but these are people that are already on removal orders, right? Because I think the fear also is that ICE is literally just picking people off the streets and then deporting them. So could you tell us a little bit about what is actually happening right now so that people have a better idea about the process that it takes to be deported?
Well, the new administration has implemented, I think, quotas based on a report, I think I've seen by the Washington Post, where the president is unhappy with the numbers that that have been reported on the people they detain or deported. And so he's putting more pressure on ICE, on DHS to detain more people, to deport more people. And the people that are at higher risk for being detained are those that are out of status, undocumented, that have a criminal history, a conviction of a serious crime. Another category that's at high risk is for those that have prior removal orders, but they didn't execute the deportation yet. And then and then they go down the list. So so people that are undocumented, and that have been in the U.S. for less than 2 years, they could be also at risk too. Sometimes when they're looking for one person, and they may sweep and take everyone around them that they think is undocumented and verify that and deport him. They are making agreements with certain countries to receive the people that are being deported. So before, some people didn't get deported because their countries wouldn't agree to receive them. Their country would make it difficult and not provide documents to deport them. So they may be deported to a third country, such as El Salvador or Panama, if they finalize those agreements.
So what happened? Well, I guess that's beyond the scope at that point because they're there. What happens if ICE detains a U.S. citizen or a legal green card holder mistakenly? I've heard people say, don't reach out to an immigration attorney. Go get your civil rights attorney. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, sure. The proof is that you don't need an immigration attorney because you just have to show proof of your citizenship, and then they need to release you. They don't have authorization to detain a U.S. citizen. Now, if you're a lawful permanent resident, they're detaining you. You have to see what the notice to, what are they charging you with? Are they saying that you violated something that that makes you deportable? So you should contact a civil rights attorney to see if the circumstances where you were detained was discriminatory and violated any of your civil rights. And just to give you some also number, or I don't have numbers, but I reviewed some information that documented ICE encounters during the Trump administration compared to other administration. And what they notice in comparing those numbers is that during the Trump administration, there was an increase in ICE encounters with U.S. citizens. So that what happened back then is somewhat gives us some expectation of what could happen in this term, is that citizens can encounter ICE and mistakenly get detained and deported, and once they are able to resolve that issue, they should see a civil rights attorney to see what rights they have been infringed on. Sorry.
Yeah, I read somewhere I think it was New Jersey or somewhere where they raided a meat packing place and they detained a U.S. citizen who was ex-military. And the reason I'm saying that is because they went in there with the assumption that everybody who works there must be immigrants, because interestingly, most Americans don't work those jobs. And so right there, it becomes discriminatory, right? Because they're not detaining you because they actually suspect you of a crime. They're detaining you because they have profiled you as potentially somebody who is a immigrant, being the type of work, which is always interesting to me because they go after the immigrants, but the workplaces stay intact. In other words, they're punishing the immigrants, but are they punishing the companies or are they just allowing companies to recycle people? It seems a little bit abusive, and I know that's not, what you guys are here to really talk about. But we are almost at the end of the show, and I really thank you guys for coming in because it has been extremely informative, especially in our community in Belize. We are afraid. A lot of Belizeans are afraid. And I'm talking about Belizeans who've lived here for 25, 30 years are asking me, hey, is it true if I don't use my passport, they're going to deport me? And to me, when the fear is at that level, we need people who are educated about the issue to come in and just let people know what's going on. Um, with that being said, thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedules to inform the Belizean community around this very important issue. Thank you, Ultra. Thank you, Amina. And I'll just let you guys have your last words.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. And I understand that it's a challenging time for everyone, whether you are undocumented or whether you have status. You may have friends and family that are. And CARE is here to support you. So please reach out to us if you need help.
Thank you.
I will close with, I'm looking forward to seeing everyone March 1st or 8th. When Bilal lets us know which day that's going to be, we are going to be happy to come out and bring the community as many resources as we have.
Thank you guys for providing this service. Thank you so much. I will go ahead and share your resources. And I'll also ask Harlan, who is our engineer, that when it re-airs, that he adds the information also to the video. So thank you so much, Bilal.
Yes, again, we want to thank both Sister Atra and Sister Amina for coming in at such a short notice, right? It was like a last minute thing. Again, thank you, Sister Amina. I mean, Sister Atra said, man, Bilal, I can't be on there for 1.5 hours. I have to get some help, and it was so kind of you, Sister Amina, to lend a helping hand and to help you both work as a team. I watched how you work at the Masjid Salam on Sunday, and I was very amazed. And so hopefully we can get Baji, I think the sister that made the presentation, we can hopefully get her maybe on the next show, because she was, the presentation she made was very, very resourceful. And I think information is the weapon right now against this. As ARIA rightfully say, we are not armed with information. And thank you too for coming on, because you made our show today. And we want to do a series of shows along immigration as long as this crisis unfolds. And again, we want to let you guys go, as I know it's been here a long time. And again, we want to say this is a XTV production. I'm Bilal Morris with my co-host and host, ARIA LIGHTFOOT, live out of Florida. We want to thank our brother Noor Mohammed, our producer. And we want to thank the man behind the controls today who always keep our show going, Harlan. We want to thank all of you who are watching and have watched this show across the Belizean diaspora in the United States, in the United Kingdom, the Caribbean, Africa, wherever you are in Europe, that watch Navel String Connection on Facebook and on YouTube. And again, those of you who missed today's show, you can always go to Facebook on the XTV page and see the show and to catch up. This is very, very pertinent information, very needed information. Information is weapon. Information is indeed important and kills fear. And we want to thank Sister Atra and Sister Amina for coming on and helping us disseminate and kill a lot of that fear. Again, we want to say thank you for watching.
Thank you.
I am a true Belizean. ladies and